Hey everybody. So first I'm going to say this. So any video that I put up on TikTok, any of my social media platforms, I am not a polished content creator. I'm not going to, edit videos. I'm just going to press play or record and here it is. Um, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. So I just wanted to share my story. Again, I'm new to TikTok, kind of. I did have an account over a year ago, but I don't know, it just got too much, took some time off, and of course, there went my platform, the followers that I had built up, so it's like starting over. So I just wanted to touch on, what brought me to mediumship. Everybody has a story of what led them to, I don't know, being brave enough or crazy enough to come out and do this work in public. So I just wanted to share a little bit about me. So you kind of have an understanding of why I'm here, and what's my motivation for doing this work. So, first off, my story kind of covers almost a 20-year period. I will try to keep the story linear, but I never have success doing that. I kind of bounce around, but you'll kind of get the idea. So, um, first, I was not one of those people that had paranormal experiences their whole life. Um, Matter of fact, I can't remember a single one growing up. My first experience didn't happen until I was 45, and my story will lead up up till that moment. Um, so I spent 20 years in the United States Air Force. I served from 1989 to um, they say 2009, so 20 years. I was an air traffic controller during that time, and I still am an air traffic controller in the civilian sector now. So a combined total of almost 35 years, in aviation. So that alone, when I tell people that, they're like, and you do mediumship on the side, it's like, how do you balance that? But yeah, so that's a whole nother story. Um, so during this time that I was in the military, there was several significant events that happened with my family. So I'll start from the beginning. In 1997, um, I lost my brother Jason, to from complications to cystic fibrosis. He was on the list for a transplant, but by the time that came, he was too sick to survive the surgery, and unfortunately, he passed. Um, the year 2000, I was diagnosed with a kidney disease out of nowhere. And again, this was probably about halfway through my Air Force career. And it come out of nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And it was one of those moments that I think it was my first experience with really having to face my mortality because the prognosis was not a good one. Although I was healthy, they basically said it's like you have this kidney disease. All we can do is monitor it, and we'll just do checks, periodically. So right then and there, I had to sit back and like first digest what just happened. Um, and again, I'm going to be brief with a lot of these. I'm just going to kind of touch on the topic itself, and then kind of move on because I can get a bit rambly. But I had to learn how to live in the moment. Everybody talks about you got to live in the moment. I literally had to do that for my sanity, um, because those dark thoughts would just invade my mind, and it would almost defeat any motivation I had going forward. Um, so I had to learn to literally like wake up in the morning and just check in with myself. How are you doing today? Good. Okay, that's all that matters. Tomorrow doesn't matter. Um, so again, I just had to just learn to live in that moment. Then in 2001, my brother Danny actually he had cystic fibrosis as well. He underwent a double lung transplant, a successful one. And I'm trying to keep this in order because there was so much that happened during this time period. 5 years later, his lungs failed or was going into rejection, and he was lucky enough to get a second transplant. So that was around, I think it was around 2012. Um, just prior to that, and again, I'm bouncing around because I'm trying to remember the sequence of events. There was so much. In 2009, I retired from the Air Force. 1 year later, my kidneys went into failure. So I had to begin dialysis. And again, now it's fresh in the moment. Even though I had lived with this situation for almost 10 years, it was like day one again. And again, it just knocked me over. And I just remember going back to that mindset of just living for the moment. It's like I have no control about what's going to happen. Um, so I just have to live every day. So I had to start dialysis. One of my other brothers tested for a transplant. He was a match. Um, Unfortunately, 2 weeks prior to the transplant date, he ended up getting an infection which turned MRSA, which disqualified him from the transplant. So there I was again, 6 months on dialysis, about to get the chance to live again without being on a machine, and this happens. And again, my mindset at the time was it's out of my control. I just have to just roll with it. 2 weeks later, a friend of mine that was in the Air Force found out that my brother was ineligible. Reached out, again, long story short, tested, he wanted to be a donor, perfect match. So December of 2010, I had my kidney transplant. So now, it's 14 years later. Thank goodness everything's been fine, perfect. So again, Danny, 2012, he goes through another transplant. My poor family going through all this, it was just unbelievable. Um, Unfortunately, a few years later, he ended up developing kidney failure, had to start dialysis, and unfortunately, shortly after that, developed lymphoma cancer in his lungs and ended up passing away in 2012 at 42. Short time later, 3 years later, I get a call from my mother one day at work, and she tells me, "Your sister was stabbed today." And I was like, "What?" So, long story there. My sister ended up passing away 2 days later after being attacked in her barber shop. Middle of the day, 33 years old, passed away. It was just unbelievable, unbelievable. Um, and again, I'm just touching the surface of this. This is where things started to turn. Now, over these years, I had been watching John Edward on TV. I had been reading books about the metaphysical, mainly as just a comfort for me. And it just gave me peace of mind knowing that there was something maybe beyond this world. Never in a million years did I think I'm going to be a medium. That wasn't in the plan. But after my sister passed, it was probably a few months later, 2 months later, I had this experience where she showed up in my kitchen. And I'll probably have to explain more in a subsequent video. But basically, that's the turning point. That kind of got me going in the direction of possibly exploring mediumship. Um, Again, this wasn't in the plan. It was just something that I felt called to do, mainly for the comfort that I knew for myself of getting a reading after everything that me and my family went through. But yeah, that's kind of the circumstances that brought me to this. And again, I'm going to do another video because I want to explain a little bit of the process of what led me to actually doing this work. But this was kind of like that tipping point. So I know this is a long, drawn out video, but I just wanted to share so you have an understanding of why I'm here. So thanks for listening. And again, I'll be back soon, and I'll do a follow-up and kind of give you the steps that I took towards doing this work. Reluctantly, I got to say, reluctantly doing this work in the beginning. So thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.